রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুরের লেখা দ্য প্যারটস ট্রেনিং গল্পটা পড়তে পড়তে মনে হলো যে না, গল্পটা একটু তোমাদেরকে শোনানো যাক। শুরু হচ্ছে আজকের গল্প, দ্য প্যারটস ট্রেনিং। Once upon a time there was a bird. It was ignorant. It sang all right, but never recited scriptures. It hopped pretty frequently, but lacked manners. Said the Raja to himself, ignorance is costly in the long run, for fools consume as much food as their betters, and yet give nothing in return. He called his nephews to his presence and told them that the bird must have him. Sound schooling. The Pandits were summoned and at once went to the root of the matter. They decided that the ignorance of birds was due to their natural habit of living in poor nests. Therefore, according to the Pandits, the first thing necessary for these birds' education was a suitable cage. The Pandits had their rewards and went home happy. A golden cage was built with the gorgeous decorations. Crowds came to see it from all parts of the world. Culture captured, caged, exclaimed some in a rapture of ecstasies, and burst into tears. Others remarked, even if culture be missed, the cage will remain to the end, a substantial fact. How fortunate for the bird! The goldsmith filled his bag with money and lost no time in sailing homewards. The Pandit sat down to educate the bird. With proper deliberation, he took his pinch of snuff as he said, Textbooks can never be too many for our purpose. The nephews brought together an enormous crowd of scribes. They copied from books and copied from copies till the manuscripts were piled up to an unreachable height. Men murmured in amazement, "Oh, the tower of culture, egregiously high. The end of it lost in the clouds." The scribes with light hearts hurried home, their pockets heavily laden. The nephews were furiously busy keeping the cage in proper trim. As their constant scrubbing and polishing went on, the people said with satisfaction, "This is progress indeed." Men were employed in large number, and supervisors were still more numerous. This with their cousins of all different degrees of distance, built a palace for themselves and lived there happily even after. Whenever may be its other deficiencies, the world is never in want of fault finders. And they went about saying that every creature remotely connected with the cage flourished beyond words, excepting only the bird. When this remark reached the Raja's ears, he summoned his nephews before him and said, "My dear nephews, what is this that we hear?" The nephews said in answer, "Siri, let the testimony of the goldsmiths and the pandits, the scribes and the supervisors be taken. If the truth is to be known, food is scarce with the fault finders, and that is why their tongues have gained in sharpness." The explanation was so luminously satisfactory that the Raja decorated each one of his nephews with his own rare jewels. The Raja at length, being desirous of seeing with his own eyes how his education department busied itself with the little bird, made his appearance one day at the great hall of learning. From the gate rose the sounds of conch shells and gongs, horns, bugles, trumpets, cymbals, drums, and kettle drums, tom-toms, tambourines, flutes, fifes, barrel organs, and bagpipes. The Pandits began chanting mantras with their topmost voices, while the goldsmiths, scribes, supervisors, and the numberless cousins of all different degrees of distance loudly raised a round of cheers. The nephews smiled and said, "Siri, what do you think of it all?" The Raja said, "It does seem so fearfully like a sound of principle of education." Mightily pleased, the Raja was about to remount his elephant when the fault finder from behind some bush cried out, "Maharaja, have you seen the bird?" "Indeed, I have not," exclaimed the Raja. "I completely forgot about the bird." Turning back, he asked his Pandits about the method they followed in instructing the bird. It was shown to him. He was immensely impressed. The method was so stupendous that the bird looked ridiculously unimportant in comparison. The Raja was satisfied that there was no flaw in the arrangements. As for any complaint from the bird itself, that simply could not be expected. Its throat was so completely choked with the leaves from the books that it could neither whistle nor whisper. It sent a thrill through one's body to watch the process. This time, while remounting his elephant, the Raja ordered his state ear puller to give a thorough good pull at both the ears of the fault finder. The bird thus crawled on, duly and properly, to the safest verge of inanity. In fact, its progress was satisfactory in the extreme. Nevertheless, nature occasionally triumphed over training, and when the morning light peeped into the bird's cage, it sometimes fluttered its wings in a reprehensible manner. And though it is hard to believe, it pitifully picked at its bores with its feeble beak. What impertinence, growled the Kotwal. The blacksmith, with his forge and hammer, took his place in the Raja's Department of Education. Oh, what resounding blows! The iron chain was soon completed and the bird's wings were clipped. The Raja's brother in law looked back and shook their heads, saying, "These birds not only lack good sense but also gratitude." With textbook in one hand and baton in the other, the Pandits gave the poor bird what may fitly be called lesson. The Kotwal was honored with a title for his watchfulness and the blacksmith for his skill in forging chains. The bird died. Nobody had the least notion how long ago this had happened. The fault finder was the first man to spread the rumor. The Raja called his nephews and asked them, "My dear nephews, what is this? What we hear?" The nephew said, "Sir, the bird's education has been completed." "Does it hop?" the Raja inquired. "Never," said the nephews. "Does it fly?" "No." "Bring me the bird," said the Raja. The bird was brought to him, guarded by the Kotwal and the sepoys and the showers. The Raja poked its body with his finger. Only the inner stuffing of book leaves rustled. Outside the window, the murmur of the spring breeze amongst the newly budded Ashoka leaves made the April morning wistful.